like this. I think all the changes you made are really nice. Like the colorfulness of it plays with your, the fact that you have so many like colors in the scene, like her shirt and her shoes. Like, I don't know, something about the color that you've added helps like push all that, to the foreground. So that's really nice. I think like the light you added is good. I'm trying to think like if it might be too much. It's just one of those like nitpicky things where I always think back to like a supervisor I had who would, want something like 10% less, Um, but it doesn't like bother me, but I could see it going down 10% and maybe sitting in the darkness a little bit because it looks a little filly now. Just to give you an idea, if you go to your luminance, um, it's like slightly brighter than like this shadow here, but I feel like it should be maybe the same. Like you still want to have like a little bit of shadow here to have a nice range. So I think if I just like grade it down, or if this is like exposure or whatever, but if I bring it down here, like maybe that light would be this dark and everything else would stay the same. And I think that might like work a little better. But again, if you like it, it's not such a big deal. I don't think anyone will notice. I think what you did here is really nice. I really like that. Like the way it sits in now. Like it just feels flatter against the wall. It doesn't kind of call attention to itself. And yeah, everything you're doing is great. Like I could see this being some kind of like show, and with like the character. I will say I do see this a lot, and actually even in like big animated things, like it's always a problem. Like no one shades the bottom of the shoes, or like the socks or the feet, and so you get like these really clean, plain looking shoes. Uh, it won't change the quality of your image, but it might add like to the overall effect if like the bottom of her feet had like a little bit of like some kind of like, I don't know, like just a texture. Right now it looks too like evenly colored. And I don't know like why I'm picking it out now, but it's like somehow these are like sticking out a little bit more to me. So um, yeah, just like maybe something here. And you can just like, I hate to say this, but like I feel like because this is just like a still, you can go in and like project something on here or like just paint it on, if you don't want to do like the texture work for it. But if you want to, practice, that could be good. But really, I think the image is awesome as is. It has like a really high quality to it, and I think it's working for you. Let's see. Oh, right. So and before I bring this up, I just want to say I'm not talking about this as like a Pixar artist or talking about like anything that Pixar does. I didn't work on Luca, so really I didn't work on any of this, but I just wanted to show you like some of the quality of the eye work that you're looking for, and you'll see like once you actually see this, once you kind of know of this, like you'll see it in pretty much every film. So sunlight's coming from here, he's kind of got a soft shadow here, and the ding tells you like where the light's coming from. On the opposite side of the ding is your like bright iris, and then where the ding is, it's like darker, and it'll help the like the ding stick out. It's kind of actually like the way that eyes do work. So if you like if you look up eye pictures, it's just not this clean, like a real eye's getting reflection from everywhere, and so it's like a little bit more complex, but like the general physics are there. But yeah, you can see like that the eyes themselves are like really clean. The eye white never gets like dingy or dirty looking. Um, so I think this is like a good reference because as like a base one, sometimes you can look and you'll get different things. If you look at like the original Rio, um, some people chose to do some really complex eye work there. Um, Especially in scenes where there was like a lot of bright light. There was just like some really nice work on the eyes there. But every show is different, and every like film has its own look. But generally speaking, it will always be, ding here, bright on the opposite side, and then like a really clean sclera, but one where you still get some shape. So you don't want it to feel like ultra white. So if I go back to your work, for the most part, I think you have it. You just need like the ding to be up higher, like both kind of in the same place. You don't want it to like penetrate into the pupil much, maybe like a little. Um, and then the side that the light is coming from should be a little darker, and then the side opposite should be like this brightness. So I think the brightness you have here is good. It just needs to get darker on the inside, or like on the side that the light is coming from. And then as far as the sclera goes, I think like this is fine. I think this is fine. It's like maybe you'd want a little bit darker here, but like the slightest amount, not nothing too much, because it's like it looks good. Um, and even here, maybe like on the inside of this eye, you'd want to get a little bit of shape. So um, just always be wary. Like put your mouse over put your mouse to see like your pixel range, or like go into your luminance and see like how that's playing. And if you don't see any like left to right or top to bottom shape, see if you can introduce it a little bit. Yeah. So I think maybe what's happening, I don't know like about your lights, but maybe this light is also hitting her eye a little bit. I'm not sure, but check that out. But yeah, so generally, this is kind of like it's like the basics, like of what you need. And then you either change it into like a more complex look by adding shapes on top of like reflected, like windows or something like that. Or some people do other things entirely. So, yeah. But otherwise, really good work. I mean, you're like at 99%. It's just super small details now, and really most of them are optional. Like if you put this on your website or your reel, I think no one would really bat an eye. I I think it's like, there's like classes of people that you might be applying to, and I think certain classes are always more picky about certain things. So anyone who's worked in like animated features will probably pick on your eye work more than anything, because it's like, it's not something you think about greatly until you've worked that a lot. Uh, People who work in like product rendering will pick on like the quality of like how good your shading looks and how accurate it is. Everyone has their own things, and depending where you apply, they'll pick out different things. So, but yeah, great work.
Thanks,
Um,
Christos. I had just one quick question.
mhm.
What's kind of like best practices for eyes? Is it like for setup is it to do like light linking? So you're just using, one light on the eyes, or kind of a combination of that with nuke, or I guess that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's really difficult to say because everyone works differently. The I think the best thing you can do is like go ahead and apply whatever lights that your character is getting on your eyes, and then analyze it as you're working, like see like what's happening, and generally what happens is some of those lights you might end up light linking off, and then some of those lights, you might end up like recreating. So I don't think like many studios like doing like in render dings because they're so hard to track, meaning like when your character's eyes move. So like if I go back to this, when his, eyes move around, like it's a difficult thing in lighting to like keep those dings there. You might like want to track some sort of, you might want to like parent some sort of like light there to just stick with his eyes to get that reflection there, but it's always like a big problem. So some like at Blue Sky, we used to do them in comp pretty much all the time. There was just like a tool that laid down everything, and it allowed you to like increase or decrease brightnesses and adjust like your iris and stuff like that. So it was, it was easy in that sense. But even that tool had its own quirks. So um, yeah, there's no best practices, but what I would say is like what I try to do is I don't try to do anything special until I have to. So I will just lay in the same lights, and then at some point I will analyze, and if I think it's too bright or if I think the color is off, that's generally one of the things. Like for instance, like maybe you have really yellow light coming in here, and maybe that's making the eyes look a little yellow and jaundiced, and so in that case I would take my light, unlink it, make a new light from the key, and make that light much whiter, um, so it's just stuff like that, but the more consistent your lighting is, the easier time you'll have with it, because uh, it's just like a really hard thing to wrangle if you're trying to either get it 100% in comp or something like that, but yeah, I think for best practices, start with just keeping the same lights and then analyze as you're going. The thing, what I feel like is probably happening with your eyes here is that, and feel free to speak out on how the eye itself is made, but generally when you're modeling like an eye, so paint. Here it comes. Okay. So when you're modeling an eye, there will be two parts, an inner and an outer, and the inner, like if you take a cross section, like you cut the eye in half and you were looking at it from the side, the inner part would be like, so, you have the, whoops, okay, hold on. So you have like the circle, and then the inner part would kind of go like this, right? So this section here, get a different color. So this section here is your iris, and then this section here is your pupil, right? And then now we'll grab a different color. Ugh, sorry. And then the outer side would kind of do this. So what that would give you is you would get, this part's clear, this part is white, this is the color of your iris, and then this part is black. And so that would give you reflections, and like your ding light go on this outer shell. The inner shell here is your iris. So when the light, so let me grab a different color. So let's say the light's coming this way, right? Your ding would appear here, and this part would be bright and this part would be dark. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think what's happening is like it seems to me like maybe like these eyes are just like the textures on the ball of the eye. Um, I'm not sure, but it's just like the way it looks like to me because the sunlight that you have is reacting pretty much the same all the way around. Um, so like in those cases, I think you just need to do some paint work in comp, to fix it. Because you don't have like the shaping on the model itself necessary to get you that look. Um, you could also do it like in a texture, like, make a ring, make one side of it bright and the other side of it dark, for the iris. But it's kind of up to you how you want to deal with that.
Well, that's very helpful. Thanks, Christos. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Austin, so we can chat about your work here. I think this is like a really good like first breakout. I feel like um, you did a good job like following your reference, and I think for the most part you're doing a good job. I will say the part that I think is most successful is let me get another paint. Everyone likes the paint. So I think the most successful portion that I see is like right here. I think this looks really nice. The sun is looking like bright. I like the way that the shadows are kind of coming in. Um, like the direction of them feels good. The only thing is I think maybe some of the shadows are like not sharp enough. Like it seems like it's a softer, like it's a bigger light than it should be. Because if I look at your reference here, I know it's hard to see. Trying to get a good measure somewhere. Yeah, so like you see here, like the shadows should be like a little sharper, um, especially like where they're hitting, initially. So what's happening here is the sun's coming through, and this is the shadow. This top part here. This top part here is the shadow line from this. So because the distance here is shorter, man, if it's not my one cat, it's the other one. So the distance here is shorter, and you get a harsher line, and then this shadow here is looking like it's from the top of the building, and so that's softer. So if I look at your work here, like these shadows here should be harder than they are, and they can, like, as they go off into the distance, they will fuzz out a little bit, but I feel like they're kind of like it's a little too much. And then the other thing is I'm feeling two shadows here in the back. It looks like you have some kind of fill or like an ambient thing going on, or maybe there's just some weird like rendering issue here. I'm not sure, but it just feels like maybe there's two. So it's like whenever you're dealing with sunlight and then you're dealing with you're dealing with like a lot of helper lights and stuff like that, you always want to hide the fact that you're using an extra light. So that secondary light that you're using either for color or for shaping, whatever it is, needs to be extremely soft. You don't want to get like hard shadows from a secondary source. So just keep that in mind. Like if you ever see two shadows, like, I feel like I'm seeing one and another one there. Make sure like whichever one is the actual sun is the one coming through, and that the other one's like so soft and that like you don't feel that shadow at all. I think that'll like help the read, There's only one film that actually can do like 2 shadows and have them be right, and that was Melancholia. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but yeah. So I really like the brightness difference, here. I think it's reading like sun to me. I think, having said that, you can maybe go a little brighter on this side. So what I like about this lighting here is that it feels to me like there's light and sunlight, and there's actually some bouncing going on. But I'm sort of missing that here. So let me do like I'll do a quick paint over here. So you have a sun, it's hitting, it's hitting this wall in some angle, right? I would expect in a scene like this, being as tight as it is, even in this like area here, that sun is bouncing a considerable amount of light this way. So if I look at some of your references here, you can see that like the sun's hitting here, and like even this wall is kind of bright, you're getting a lot of bounce back. You're getting a lot of like, not refraction, radiosity. So like even here, if you look at this wall and then you look at this wall, I feel like you see some kind of light coming back. And I think that if you stick a light, like basically create like a big card that's like warmer than the sun, right, than your sunlight, and have it come out and spill out into the rest of the set here, you'll get like some nice like lighting, and you'll get, this is now coming out this way, and like that's gonna, maybe you have that already. I'm not sure how you're rendering this, but it will help. It will help to like really push that look and get you that like extra bit that makes people like, oh, like this looks so like nice and warm, and like warmly Philly, so I would try to get a little bit more like bounce into your set, like just bounce light coming everywhere. So like even here, this is like red. I would expect some red to actually bounce back onto this building, and like light some of the things. So like if I look here, I do see some red coming back right there, but I just think you can accentuate it a little more, with your own light. So you can just take another light and slap a little color here. It'll help. So you have also the same like texture. I know you're dealing with some texture issues here, like this stuff. I won't comment on that, but I do think like everyone working on this has like that issue of the cracks being too black, and I just get this feeling like there's this average color here, and when you're looking at it and your eyes are sort of determining what the color is, that black, those black colors here, this is like 000, is kind of like really diminishing the overall light that you would have on your floor. So I think like that's something that needs to be fixed in the file. And then like I kind of like what you're doing here, and I do think, from what I see, I'm getting the sense that it's kind of looking like this, like this area here, or maybe even this area. And I do think like you're getting there, but it feels a little bit like flat, just like omni level, and I think it needs to have some direction. So imagine, if you will, that this is a this is kind of a tight street, and the skylight that you have is like, sorry, the skylight that you have is essentially, it's this big, you know, and it's coming pretty much straight down on this. So I would expect to feel like a brighter top and like a slightly darker edge, and like you do have it, right? I don't want to take that away from you, but I just get the sense that like if I look at your luminance, like all this kind of falls into a very similar level in my eye. And I think one of the things that's really beautiful about your lighting here is that if I look back here, I get so much like shaping, so much light, I get like really nice like hits and stuff like that. And I know that that's happening from the sun, but I think with a combination of like this light coming in and shaping, hitting these edges and the floor here, having like the skylight be a little bit more shaped in this like tight location will, I think it'll like act to give you like, you see the top of this like windowsill here, like you see how like the tops are a little brighter than the sides, like the chairs and the, like basically everything vertical here, oh sorry, anything that's flat horizontal is going to get that top lighting. So if you look here and there, there's some shaping here, and all that shaping is kind of working together to like give us the idea of the sky coming down. And I think that, your piece is kind of missing that a little bit. So I think you can introduce that, like whatever omni light that you have, whatever ambient light that you have, you can like darken that a little bit, and then introduce that skylight kind of coming from above. Sometimes it's like a portal, like think of this as like a cave in a way, because you have tight at corners, tight edges, and you just have your light coming from the top. Yeah, no, I think this is it's a great start. And like I said, I think this back area is really successful. I'd kind of want to see like the colorfulness and like the like, like the level, of light that you have here kind of everywhere else. So, just to summarize, have a light that bounces this way, maybe even some red onto this back wall. See if you can get some shaping from the skylight. And then I would definitely try to fix like this stuff here. And then the last thing is this ground here and this ground here are getting the same key or sunlight to me. That's kind of how I'm reading it. But this one's significantly brighter. So I would make sure that it matches. Make sure that it's the same light. And then make sure that you don't have like two shadows in places. But yeah, fantastic work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So Ruby, we'll go on to your work. Yeah, Ruby, I really like this update. I think it's like so cool. It becomes more of like its own world, when you do stuff like this. And I think it's kind of interesting, like that play. I will say, you lost some of the like the bouquet on the bottom. Is that like purposeful, or is that just the way that it worked when you tried to like add Atmo?
No, I did move the picture a little bit that I had with the stars. I noticed that some of the lights, like the stars, were like kind of too close to the bottom, so I got like really sharp, like in the middle kind of. Like it was a lot different than the sky and the floor, and the rest looked like a little bit more like all combined, like the atmosphere and stuff. So yeah, I kind of shift the story a little bit of that, and yeah, kind of remove the brightness behind the actors.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think maybe just here, maybe like if you can reintroduce it to just because there's nothing back here, you might want to add something like one or two dots, here, and like one here might just fill it out enough. Um, but I do really like the color changes that you made. I think it's really working for the scene. Uh, like it has a really nice element to it. And then yeah, the only thing that's it's like this flower here somehow there's like a lot of contrast between here and here, and I feel like it's calling a lot of attention to itself. I'm not sure like what the solution is. I wonder if you like can you like just turn this off and just have like the cactus uh, like spherical on top, or is it built into the rest of the model?
No, I can figure out. I can that's what was happening with the floor. So I have like a bright like star behind it, and then show like I don't know those like the circles are there to somewhere else.
Yeah,
Or just flat.
yeah, I just think like it's a weird shape, and like even if you blurred it out more or something, it might still stay, and it's kind of like right in the center of your frame. So I would, if I could, if you could rather, I don't know what this model is, kind of how it's made, but yeah, if you just take that off and then you have like a spherical top, I think it might just like sit in far enough that it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and then let's see. Sorry, I'm just playing around. Yeah, no, I think it's really nice actually. Um, yeah, like I mean, I don't have any like notes uh, on like the like whole layout. I do think like zooming in, like is this stuff diffusion, or is it like depth of field on the edges?
No, that's a good fusion that I got.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's like a little. Hmm. Okay, so I'm trying to like just find a word, like the right word to use. Um, it's like very even, like it seems like there's like a 5 pixel blur, you know what I mean, like applied all the way around. So like if you look at the edge here and you look at the edge here, like, it just follows the character. Um, Part of that is the direction, like the directionality of your characters, and, like how that rim kind of goes all the way down. But like even here, you can see that, it's kind of happening. So I think one of the ways to kind of combat that is if you take like a key, I'm not sure how you're achieving it. I'm just trying to. So if you take like a keyer, ugh, sorry. This is like not the cat that does this, So if you take a keyer, and this is just like your basic, keyer, and then you just do like a luminance key. I'm sure you're doing something similar to this. Sorry. Okay. You know, sometimes you just want to like limit it to be. I think my nick froze. Okay. Sometimes you just want to limit it so that it's like even tighter, you know, and then what will happen is you'll get like a range. You'll get like a range in terms of like the size on the edge, you know, like it'll be thicker in some places and thinner in others. And what will happen is when you use that mask to like throw in like a diffusion or something like that, or you know, throw in like some blur in there, the sizing will be different, you know, so you just have to play with this a little bit, because like when I'm looking at your main, what is going on right here? All right, hold on guys, I'm sorry. So I'm just gonna say it. Both my wife left for the day, and she went to go see her sister, and both my cats are now like terrorizing me while I'm working. Okay, so like, because if I see this here, like I can almost, as I zoom in, I almost feel like it's happening all the way across very evenly. And you know, it kind of looks a little artificial, you know, when you do that. So that's just like one thing that I think you can do to make the image a little better. So if you use a keyer and then you use that, you know, and you kind of like control it a little bit, you can even like take like multiple keyers, like if you wanted thickness somewhere and, you know, thin, like a thin somewhere else, and then like mix it with like a roto or something like that and determine like what you want, and then use that as like a mask for where you're use that as a mask for the like diffusion process that you're doing. The other thing I was going to say is I want to test maybe I wonder if you threw in, that's great. That looks perfect. So I'm just trying to see if like maybe a little like foreground, maybe maybe like a little foreground like volume could help you. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. And then, let's see, if you did that, you'd actually have to remove it from your characters. So like generally, fog over characters can be like distracting, like you're kind of like getting rid of like all the nice work that you did on your character. So I'm just gonna remove it from him. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure it's doing much for you. But it could just be something to think about if you're looking for like a little extra. And maybe the color's off. It could be like the... but it's not necessary. Honestly, I sometimes I'm just kind of looking just to see, not for problems or anything like that, but even in your own work, it's one of those things where sometimes you'll present your work and then someone will take it and say like, oh, like what if we added a ton of red to it, and like it'll like change the scene completely in like a good way, or sometimes even in a bad way. And so it's worthwhile to just like really play a little bit, with your frames, just to see like what exactly you can do. So like now I'm just increasing your reds, or like decreasing your reds, I'm just trying to see like what happens, when something like that changes, and it can spur like a lot of ideas for how to like move forward. But yeah, I think like removing this, maybe adding some more of the defocus, the circles of confusion here, and then fixing like this like kind of this like line so that you it's not the same all the way around, will help you, and I think you'll be pretty much done after that. The other thing I wanted to try is this. You're gonna laugh. So sometimes you can throw in like a little bit of wash into your scene, and like a wash, is basically just it's not necessarily this, there's many different types, but like sometimes just taking your scene and blurring it and then screening it on top can add like an overall softness that can help, so you can do something like this too, and that will like add some color to the edges, and it will, it can have that like Vaseline look, if you go too far. So be careful, but it's like the slightest amount, and you can even do things like when you have this blurred issue, you could do like a keyer and then darken anything that's dark, and then put that on top. There's just like a bunch of things you can even, so like let's say this is like here, right? You can actually take, and I know you want to see this stuff, so I'm sorry. This is just what I did, a blur and then a screen on top. So B, A or B. And then if you take like the color and, you just change it. Let's say you could essentially add like a secondary color to your scene through the wash. So like it's adding like purple, where you didn't have it before. But it's just, I'm just throwing out ideas, and it's like, what do you like? What catches your eye? Again, like I'm a big proponent of like not having something feel like super CG, like I like to like soften edges. Sometimes like if something appears like just way too sharp, like not in a good way, I'll just like try to even throw like a single pixel blur, on top of certain items. But I don't do it as like a blanket thing. It just depends on like what the scene needs. So, but yeah, honestly, I think this is like really close to done. There's just like those, that thing there and some bokeh. I'm sorry I talked about it so much. I'm not trying to pick on your work or anything like that. This is like an interesting scene because, it's like dark, there's light, you have like bokeh and blur in the background. So there's just a lot to look at. It's kind of like a really nicely laid out image. So, yeah, I think it looks really nice. So keep going. I think you have like one more iteration before, it's pretty much done. So.
Awesome, thank you. Really nice pointers. Thanks.
So moving on. Oh man, I lost my. All right, I'll go back here. I just want to go ahead and see what Caro wrote. So he said here, desat the rim light and lowered the exposure, lower the light on the hair, increase the fill light, and match the color of the key light with the rim light. Okay, so this was yesterday's. This was yesterday's work, and then this is today. Oh man, I don't know why that white bar is there. Hold on, I'm gonna just get a crop in so we don't have to look at that. Whew, that'll save your eyes. Okay, so this was yesterday, and then this is what we have today. Yeah, and I think, Caro said that this image was a little desaturated from what he expected. Or she, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think it's still good. I think it's like a really good work, Yesterday I kind of got into the weeds with this one, mainly because I was just trying to show like some small like ways to adjust like colors and things like that. But honestly, based on this, like I think it matches pretty well. If this really is desaturated and a little bit of more color comes in here, then I think it'll be, pretty much dead on. Yeah, the other thing I would say is I think this just needs maybe what's happening is the gamma is off. Because when I turn the gamma down, I feel like it, well, you have to kind of gamma. Cats won't leave me alone. Okay, maybe it's just like a gamma thing, because I think when you gamma it down a little bit, the shadows start to match a little better. Yeah, again, it's going to be hard to match the look of this shot. There's so much like processing going on to the actual like footage. But I think what you've done well is like the placement of the lights seem okay. Your shaping is very similar. The hair is now looking really good. If I had to like nitpick, stuff, I would just say that like some of your eye work is like, is way different. Like his eyes are much, much darker. And that's actually like in film, there isn't like this, there's an emphasis on eyes, but it's not, this like perfect ding, perfect sclera, like a lot of times just, the character's eyes, um, there isn't like that like major focus, and I don't mean to say it blanketly because there is a focus on eye work for sure. But in animation, it's just like this like really, really heavy focus. The eyes are generally big and like they're made to be like a focal point. And I think in, this, they use like the reflections to get that, but they're not so like militant about, the eyes being themselves super bright because you have reflections from your scene to help you with that. But if you wanted to like go in and actually adjust that, I think you can like darken the sclera here even a little more, to the point where it's almost kind of matching, with this. But you got to keep the reflections bright, and that'll get you there. So even in this eye, it's like maybe the sclera needs to go down a little bit so that you can read the reflection a little more. So again, this is all super nitpicky. You can kind of go at this as much as you need to, but I don't see like much more that you can do with like this shader set and this model, to like get it there. I feel like as an exercise, you did it well, and it's time to like move on to your next assignment and use what you learned here in the next one. I'm a big proponent of like moving on, like because if you worked on this one for another 2 weeks, I feel like you would have gotten more by working on a new project in that time and solving a different problem and kind of coalescing that information, and just building your your base, of like what how to do instinctively. So for my money, I could say like this is done. If you wanted to like go and do some eye work to get that like close, I would, you could definitely experiment there if you have some extra time. And then if you wanted to keep going, I think like some of the coloring here is a little off. This seems to me, it's like a little warm. When I mouse over this one here, it's actually a little green. So if I just took your entire scene and I threw a little green into it, that to me like immediately starts to look, a little more like, especially on the shirt, so you could do stuff like that. But again, sometimes like if you're doing stuff in comp, or if you want to go and do that in lighting and render the shot again, that's fine too. But it just depends how far you want to go with this, because like his skin doesn't read super green to me, but like the shirt definitely is like slightly greener. So yeah, I think you did a good job. The like things seem generally well put together. So it's up to you how far you want to go. I would give it like one more iteration if you wanted to, and then just move on. Yeah, nice work. Okay, so going to Paul, and it doesn't look like he's here, so I think he'll just listen to the feedback. So Paul yesterday he showed, and it was, I think he showed this, and the notes were to essentially darken the background or find a way to introduce like something in the background so that like we could actually see these front characters. And so this is what Paul did today, and I think like it's a big improvement. It's a big improvement over like what we saw yesterday. I still think that there's like room to actually darken that background a little more. And like I said, I know you want to keep it as a comedy thing, but I think like whenever you have this amount of like action in the foreground, like it seems like there's going to be a lot going on, having a lot of clutter in the background or not having it clearly, like easily visible is going to like work against you. So what I was thinking we could do today is we could try a few things actually. So one of the things you can do, and like I did do some roto work last time, I'm going to try to quickly put something together here. And then we'll use it for the rest of the day. See, like, like right here, Paul, like this object here, I can't tell if it's in the foreground or the background, so I'm not including it, but it could be something in the foreground. I'm just not sure. And that's the kind of stuff that I think, it's like you made a set and the set's looking nice, but I think it's kind of like working against you in a way. So I'm just going to take that whole background piece, not including this thing on the right here, and I wanted to just use it. Oops. And again, I think like if you like did something like this, I think that would just, to me personally, I think that would look, it would go a long way towards us being able to read the characters. But even still, I think what's happening is like the colors back here are just so close to what's actually happening in the foreground. Let's look at the original image for a second, and then let's go look at your reds. So if I just look at your reds, look how close even like this is to your background. And then let's go look at your blues real quick. So, or let's look at your greens. And again, look how close your greens are to your background. And then let's go look at your blues. And again, like you can see how close everything is. And like, I know I'm going through each one, but I just want to show you like, even though your RGB, this is green and this is like this color here, tonally, like on each of these colors, they're almost exactly the same. They're in like it's like if you're in a color wheel and you keep everything at the same saturation, but then you move your hue, it's almost like you did that, for the green. And what that does is it keeps everything like almost in the same family, the same like saturation family. So like right here on this red, that's a very saturated red, and it doesn't really mix with this like warm background. So I think you're gonna have to change not only the value, but also the hue. And so that's kind of why I was saying that maybe it would be better to like change the background here to have like a bluer light. I'm trying to get the blue, but So I know like you probably don't like this, right? You probably like aren't like this isn't what I want, you know, and that's completely fair. Boy, I just can't push that. Okay, I'll try a different way. I'm gonna Alright, I'm gonna try a hue rotate. And we'll see if that works. Yeah, so it's so hard. It's like almost impossible to pull blue out of there. Let's try this again. Let's actually try this. So there's another way you can do this where you take a constant like a blue, some kind of blue. I'll make it a little bit warm, and I will So basically what I'm doing is I'm mixing in a constant over your background. Not for you to do this in comp or anything, but I'm just trying to like get to a different value back here overall, in hopes that it actually like, you know, changes that lighting over there. Let me see if but so the reason why I'm hoping to do this is because then you'll have, you know, if you have it darker back there and you lower all your lights in the background, you'll have like a value separation where like now we can see like a difference. And then, you know, if you look at like your colors as well, you'll have a color, you know, and saturation difference, and I think that will help you as well. So the other thing we can do is instead of throwing color or changing the color like this, I can use a color correct node first to desaturate your background, and then I can, now that it's desaturated, I can actually then like more successfully like toss like a blue light back there, and again you just want to like mix it down in both cases, you know, so like now it's a little bit more neutral, right? And like it just feels like a lot of the emphasis is here. And if this window was just as bright as you had it before, so again, I did this the other day, but I think it's important to just show like an example. I always miss closing it. So if if you do something like that, and then let's see. You know, like startingly, like that background looks like it's just naturally lit from, you know, just ambiently lit. And then now we have like a really solid separation. and we're just looking at your like your characters here. You know, you've set a stage in a way, you know. And that doesn't mean like it has to be this ambiently lit. Like you can have some of that front light like enter into the back, you know. But I think especially this back wall, this far back wall, it needs to separate from your characters much more than what's happening now. Like just look with your eye like in the center here, and like you can see that you almost can't tell where the character and the back wall and then this glass starts. And then look over here, you can like right away see the difference of like where the characters are. I'm gonna just blur this roto so it's not so hard edged. But yeah, like to me, like that just reads better, you know. And like maybe you don't like the color or like whatever it is about it, you know, that you don't like. That's fine, you know. I don't want you to like get to this point, but I just think you need to like do something to get a really solid amount of like separation between there. You know, the other thing I was thinking you could do if you want to do something like this is imagine that there's a window back here behind there. You can actually toss like a, so you could toss like an extremely, oh, can't see. There it is. You could toss like a really big, soft, like volume back here. As if there was like a window back there. So I'm going to RGBA. I'm going to mix this with our roto. So mask. I know it's like way too much, but I'm gonna just lower it now. Okay, so if you did something like this, where you're throwing like some fog back there, you know, from an open window or whatever, you know, then there'd be some fog back here, there'd be some fog coming in through there, and then what that would do is kind of like just completely like remove, you know, it would kind of like get rid of details from the background through the fog, and I think that would help you as well, you know, if you did something like that. So just to show you the difference, if I start here and I end here, let me just get rid of stuff. I feel like that separation is much more, and you know, again, like the color doesn't have to be this exactly, you know, you're free to, you know, this is your project, do what you need to. But I'm just trying to illustrate to you like the need to like separate your characters out even more. But I think you're like moving in the right direction, and I do like the way your characters are looking. I would actually try to maybe like not have so much reflection on your character's eyes here. It's looking weird. Like, you know, remember we were talking about like the dings and stuff like that. I just feel like you want to have a clean read on the eyes, so keep them bright, but keep them from you know, keep the like reflectivity to like a minimum, since you have such like cartoony irises and pupils. The characters here are reading actually really nicely to me. If I just look at the characters, I think they're actually pretty cool. I don't have many notes on them. I think the only thing is you have this like nice green color here on, you know, on this stuff, and on his fingers here, it's actually a little brown. And I think you would do, like, it would help you to have them be greener, because then you would read them more. It would read like that green stuff that they're putting into the blender. So I don't know where this is in the story. I could be wrong. And then the other thing is, I think these hits are too high here. You're not rendering in HDR, and like, I almost feel like if I mouse over it, like, yeah, like you're getting to 11.61, but it looks like it's clipping. Like it really needs to go over one to look right, and then you're exporting in like sRGB, it keeps it at 1, and now you have these like clipped values. So I would just roll them off as much as I could, and I think that'll kind of get, like whatever specular light you have on here, either like make it a new specular light and lower the spec on it a little bit, because yeah, you don't want it to like look clippy like this. It's also like a little distracting whenever you have stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I've been focusing so much on, the background, because I really want people to see what's happening here. So I think you just need to find some way. You don't have to take what I did and, do that, but just like something to really help you read those characters immediately. You don't want space like this where you can't tell where one thing is starting and one thing is ending. It just like takes away from your work, and I really want people to see like the whole project. So good work. I think you're in the right direction with this, and yeah, I look forward to seeing where the shot goes. It's really cool. So that's all we have today, actually. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Are you guys like, it's Friday, I want to go home, leave me alone? All right, so
I have a quick question. Like, taking Paul's project with the colors and stuff, with the background, I mean, if he puts like a more blurry background, would that also help if he keeps like the same color?
yeah, it could. There is like such a thing as like a detail contrast, where it's like, you're just blurring out your background, and I think in that sense it would help a lot. In fact, we can even like try it if I share again. So where is it? So you take this, and then let's see if I can. So like that's too much. But yeah, like something like that would help. The thing about doing something like this is like, does your framing support it? Like when you do stuff like that, sometimes it might make things look a little miniature. So if the camera was closer to the characters, like if we were here, I could see that level of blur like working, maybe a little less. But being this wide of a camera angle, it just looks a little weird. But he could definitely like throw a little bit more in, and it would help. But what?
Sorry, I feel like in the last version he did have like a little bit more blur background than this one, right? Or
it's more in this one.
Because even the plate that's like in the foreground that you said,
oh yeah, you're right.
You didn't this. It's a little bit more blurred out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the camera angle changed a little bit too. Yeah, so it's more blurred out, but yeah, I just think like you have to be it's you got to be like careful with like a blur and depth of field because sometimes, like I said, sometimes going too high can make things look like they're miniature, or it makes your camera work look, a little off. And it really just depends like what you're shooting with and what kind of shot you have. So sometimes you can get away with stuff like that, and sometimes it might look a little weird. So, but yeah, I mean it's a good note to bring up that maybe he should return the depth of field to the level he had it yesterday, because I think that looked natural, for what it was, and then today it's mostly off.